Every year when I begin working with my students to teach essay writing, there are a few habits that we need to break. Usually, these habits come from things that are taught in writing essays for the language arts. Other habits come from having minimal instruction in the social sciences and historic disciplines. This video will expose you to some of the general truths or rules of social studies essays. Although there are a few exceptions, especially in disciplines such as psychology or economics, the following are true for most formal history-based essay writing assignments. These guidelines will help you to write a more professional and polished essay. The first rules we will look at focus specifically on organization and perspective. First, most essays should be fact and analysis-based, not opinion-based. Most social studies essays, unless they are editorial or strictly persuasive, are going to be more evidence or fact-based as opposed to asking you for your personal thoughts. Thus, you should avoid using generalizations or universal statements, which are often not true in essays about history or geography. A generalization is not the same thing as analysis. That being said, you will need to make an argument. These arguments are not opinions, though. Analysis comes from conclusions that can be drawn and supported by the historical facts. You will make an argument, but the argument is generally not about your opinion. It is something that you can show by demonstrating that history supports such a claim. Second, most essays should be organized chronologically. It is especially important in a social studies essay that your evidence goes in chronological or sequential order. You may confuse your reader if you begin by talking about the end of a war and analyze the implications of the war first, and then later return to discuss how a nation got into the war in the first place. If you need to add information that you remembered later, go back and insert it where it best supports the essay. You don't want to compromise the flow of your argument just to earn points for providing evidence. Third, most essays should stay within the time period. You may love connecting things with other time periods or want to bring everything to the present day, but such connections should be limited unless the question directs you to do so. Finally, with respect to perspective, most essays should be written from the objective perspective. Depending on who is reading your work, they likely know more than you do about the topic, but you should never assume this, especially because your grade is likely influenced by your ability to prove mastery of the content. Instead, write as if your reader or grader knows nothing about the topic. You'll need to provide enough information to prove that you are an authority on the subject. Now, let's take a look at some basic grammatical and writing rules for formal essays in the social sciences, and specifically history-based writing. First, your essay should use the past tense. While this may differ from discipline to discipline, essays involving history generally read best when they are in the past tense. Most often, this is because the events occurred and are over. Historical figures such as Abraham Lincoln are no longer living. This is a major difference than in writing essays for most of your English or language arts classes, in which you are generally instructed to write in the present tense. The general rule for history essays, then, if it happened in the past, write about it in the past tense. Second, your essay should not use first person or second person unless otherwise indicated by your teacher. You want to be an objective outsider. It's important that you realize that you are not writing as an American. When you write about the Cold War, for instance, it is not us against them. You are a scholar, and you want to remain as objective as possible. This enhances your credibility as a writer, and it means that people will be more open to reading your ideas and not be swayed by your bias. It is not necessary to say, in my opinion, or I believe. We can assume you believe it because you wrote it. These phrases will only detract from the strength of your argument. If you are willing to write it, then you should state it as an argument, not as an opinion. Similarly, you should not need the word you at all in the formal essay. Your arguments will persuade the readers. Finally, your essay should refer to historical figures appropriately. Generally, when you refer to a person the first time, use both their first and last name or their title. For example, General Douglas MacArthur or Abraham Lincoln. However, every successive time, you may refer to them by their last name only. In some literature or English classes, you will be encouraged to write about the characters by their first name only, but this is out of place in a history essay. You are not on a first name basis with President Lincoln, so, out of respect, refer to them by their last name. It makes for a more professional tone. These basic rules will help you to elevate the tone and flow of your writing in the social science disciplines. Remember, It is important to check with your instructor because some of these rules may not directly apply to the form of writing activity you are completing or to the specific field that you are working in. For most of your historically based questions or prompts, these rules will help to mark your essay as one that is more cohesive and persuasive because it treats the subject matter in the appropriate manner.